Here are 5 singles tactics you can use to win more matches. Tip number 1, average higher over the net than your opponent during a rally. Think about it. When you're playing, would you rather have a ball bouncing up high on your backhand or coming right in your strike zone around hip level? Same thing on the forehand. Would you rather play the ball here, or would you rather play the ball out of your strike zone? We tend to think that hitting fast and low over the net means it's a good shot. The problem is we're giving our opponent the exact ball they're hoping for. Hit more of an arcing ball. Think Nadal. Nobody calls Nadal a pusher. No one thinks he's just hitting moon balls. He's hitting higher over the net with spin. You don't even have to have that type of spin. Just hit a little higher over the net than you typically do with just any type of spin. That ball's going to land in. And now when the ball bounces, now it's going to bounce higher out of your opponent's strike zone and you're going to frustrate them. When you hit higher over the net, 3 really good things happen. You hit the net less. That's a good thing. You hit the ball deeper, and depth is actually the #1 way to force an error from your opponent. And the third is when they move back, because maybe they don't like taking the ball on the rise or they're not very good at it, when that ball then bounces, it's now higher and out of their strike zone. Be the player who hits higher over the net on average. You're going to win more points. Tip number 2, dictate play with your forehand. And that typically means you have to be able to move around a ball that is coming to your backhand, that's weak, and you have the time to move around it and hit it as a forehand. And in this scenario, it is a great idea to take your strength against your opponent's weakness. I was giving a lesson actually about a year ago to 2 gentlemen I know very well. And they were playing points out. And I noticed that, let's call this guy Mike and we'll call this guy Joe, all right? So I noticed that when the ball was coming, let's say to Mike's backhand, he was just hitting it as a backhand. And I noticed that when the ball went to Joe's backhand, he was just hitting it as a backhand. And I explained to both of them, I said, look, just because a ball comes to your backhand doesn't mean you have to accept that. You can move around it if you have the time and you can hit a good shot. Make it your strength, make it your forehand. And when you do this, it's actually a good idea to hit to the opponent's weaker side. So don't just accept a ball that's coming to your backhand as, well, it's on that side, that's the shot I have to hit. If it's slow enough and if you have the time, move around it and dictate play. Your opponent is giving you the backhand on purpose. But if they don't hurt you with that shot and you can move around it, dictate play with your forehand. And again, it's a really good idea to take this shot when you move around it, to take it to your opponent's weaker side. Anytime you can put strength against weakness, it's a good thing for you. All right, tip number 3. Your opponent comes to the net and you're going to go for a lob. Now, if your definition of a lob is a ball that goes over the opponent's head and lands behind them, that's probably the reason why your lobs are landing out. Right? If you're the type of person who anytime you go for the lob, the ball just tends to land long, it's because you're avoiding your opponent. Stop avoiding your opponent with your lob. Involve them in the point and do so by hitting it over their backhand side. Just give them a high backhand volley or overhead and let them screw it up or hit a weak ball. Half the time they'll screw it up, so that's a great thing. And the other half, they'll usually hit a weaker ball that lands short. Now you move into no man's land. They got pushed back into no man's land, and you know, I mean, it's called no man's land for a reason. If you're in no man's land hitting a ball aggressively, moving in, and your opponent's stuck in no man's land, you're going to win that point probably 85-90% of the time. So when your opponent comes to the net, tip number 3, lob over your opponent's backhand side, and you have a big, big advantage. Now, that tip is actually in the Fuzzy Yellow Balls singles playbook. I believe it is page 57. Let me actually look at this. It's over 50 pages of strategies you can use over and over. Yep. Hitting the ball is called the parachute, where you hit the ball over your opponent's backhand side when they come to the net. This book is unreal. Strategy after strategy of how to beat your opponents. The pusher, how to beat the counterpuncher. Aggressive baseliner, serve and volley, or Dr. Feelgood. That's what Will Hamilton calls players who use a lot of spin and they're kind of doing all this slicey dicey stuff. How to beat the all-court player and how to beat the southpaw, how to beat the lefty. Strategy after strategy, and these strategies come from the best players and coaches of all time. And I mean, Rafael Nadal, Roger Federer, they use these strategies all the time. To pick up the singles playbook from Fuzzy Yellow Balls, you can use my link in the description and pinned in the first comment. All right, tip number 3. There are 3 ways to get to the net in tennis. You can serve and volley, you can wait for your opponent to hit a short ball, or you can move in when they are in trouble. Now, you've most likely played people who don't hit short, right? They tend to hit the ball pretty deep. And maybe you don't like your serve, or maybe you're just not comfortable serving and volleying and dealing with that first volley. So then you got to figure out, okay, how do I get to the net without them hitting short and without serving and volleying? You got to get them in trouble. And one of the best things you can do is hit a loopy ball on purpose, this really high ball to your opponent's backhand side, and then sneak in to around no man's land. You're in no man's land while they're hitting the ball, but that's okay because they're dealing with a ball that's way up off on their backhand side, so they can't hurt you. And then obviously they hit the ball back, you volley it into the open court, and you're going to win that point 9 times out of 10. Now, there might be some of you saying, yeah, but what if I hit the high ball and they take it on the rise? Well, then you don't move in. Like, you want to hit that shot high to their backhand and then look to see how they react. If they move, that's sports in general. It's just doing something, seeing how your opponent reacts, and then playing off of it. When you hit the ball high to your opponent's backhand side, if they start moving back to the fence, that's when you quick sneak in. If they take it on the rise, okay, they took it off the rise, so then you try it again. And if they go, oh, I can't take that off the rise, and then they move back, that's when you sneak in. I want you to figure out how to get to the net more often. That doesn't mean serve and volley every point. It doesn't mean just force your way in. You want to be smart when going to the net. Otherwise, the pros would just, at any time, just run to the net. They don't, and there's a reason why. Sometimes you go to the net at the wrong time. This would be a time that going to the net is correct. Hit a high loopy ball on purpose, not just to be a pusher, but to be someone who sneaks in and gets that next ball out of the air, and you are going to dominate your next match. The last tip I've got for you. I want you to just imagine you're driving a car with someone. I love metaphors, analogies, whatever you want to call them. I'm not sure if I actually know the difference between those two, but let's just, here we go. So you're driving a car, and I'm in the passenger seat next to you, and I'm holding a glass of water that's quite full. You're driving, and your job is to get me to spill the water, and you can't knock it out of my hand. That would be too easy. You have to use the car, and you're driving to get me to spill my water in the passenger seat, right? What could you do to get me to spill the water? You could slam on the gas, and we go like this, and the water spills on me. You could slam on the brakes. You could go gas, brake, gas, brake. You could jiggle the steering wheel, look for a pothole, or jump a curb, right? You're going to figure out any way I can spill the water by keeping me off balance. Let me tell you what you wouldn't do. You wouldn't set the car on cruise control and drive on the flattest road you can find in a straight line. That's not what you would do, yet that's how many of us play tennis. Many of us hit the same shot over and over and over again at the same speed, with the same amount of spin, the same type of spin, the same depth, and your opponent gets used to it, and it never keeps them off balance. If you watch baseball, you know that baseball pitchers constantly are using different pitches, different locations, right? Different spins, different speeds. They're trying to keep the batter off balance. You can do that in tennis as well. You can hit the ball on your backhand, you can hit slice, then you can hit topspin, then you can hit slice again, and then you can hit a slice forehand or a high looping topspin forehand. You can return serve with a slice. You can return serve with a pop-up, right? You can serve your second serve as your first serve. Try this the next time you go out and play. If you're someone who can hit a kick serve, I want you to, on the very first point, your very first serve, I want you to hit your kick serve. You're most likely going to make it because you're hitting your second serve, and you're going to make the vast majority of your second serves. So now your opponent thinks, oh, they must be a kicker, right? They're Stefan Edberg or they're Patrick Rafter, right? They're someone who hits topspin serves. So you come over here and you do it again. You hit a kick serve for your first serve. So now your opponent is expecting a kick serve. Let's say it's 15-all. You walk over, it's 15-all, you've split the first 2 points, hitting a first serve with a kick serve, and now you blast a flat serve right at your opponent. Watch how late your opponent is on that return. You're going to win that point right off of the return. When you vary speeds, spins, locations, and heights over the net, you keep your opponent off balance. Now, if you're looking for new opponents in your local area to play against, practice with, or if you're looking for a coach who's close to you to help you with your strategy in your game, then use my link in the description for Play Your Court. It's playyourcourt.com/2minutetennis. When you join their amazing community and find people in your local area using my link, you get 50% off. Both the playbook links and the Play Your Court link are in the description and pinned in the first comment. Use these 5 strategies because your opponent doesn't want you to. Use these 5 strategies and there's no doubt you're going to gain confidence, win more matches, and play much better tennis. This is Ryan Reedy from 2minutetennis.net. You got this.